Great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? It's your boy Rio Robinson back with the latest and greatest on the Ramblin' with Rio YouTube channel, where we ramble about the Washington Commanders. Today is Tuesday, August 27th, and today was NFL cutdown day. Get it from 99 players to 53. So this is your post-cut clarity stream. You know, if you know, you know. You know what I'm going for in the title. You get your most clearest vision and the most clarity in your decisions after the deed is done. And the deed we will be speaking of is cut down day. And I had to bring on my guy, the GOAT, the gatekeeper of Washington Commanders YouTube, my boy Louis T. He's probably tired of me because we just finished a pod with Justin Pugh. What's going on, my guy?
What's going on, Rio? You know what it is, man. 53-man roster cut day has come and gone, and some interesting decisions have been made, man. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Very interesting. We're not going to waste any time tonight. I want to pull up the 53-man roster. So they came out a little bit after 4. We didn't get them as early as we usually see them. So first glance takeaway, what's your snapshot take of Washington's 53-man roster?
Not too many things went askew, I would say. Not too many things were surprising to me. I didn't expect 3 quarterbacks, so that was the first thing that jumped out at me. They kept Jeff Driscoll, and I'm glad they did, because I'd already talked about, you know, if something goes wrong with either one of the 2 quarterbacks, if Driscoll gets picked up, you're stuck with Sam Hartman, or you got to go, you know, scavenging through the streets to find a veteran backup that can, you know, be ready to jump in a game if need be. So now you don't have to worry about that with Jeff Driscoll being on the roster. You know, obviously the 2 biggest surprises were Colson Yankoff making the team, and then obviously them not keeping KJ Henry, which allowed it paved the way for Javonte John Baptiste to make the roster, which was a bit of a surprise to me. You know, I'm gonna have to give up probably a 00 on my show, because I was adamant that Jamison Crowder was not gonna make the roster, and a lot of people were like, he's making the roster, bro. I don't know what you're talking about, and he did make the roster. But outside of those 2 guys, I would tell you that the roster went the way that I thought it was gonna go. I did not think Trent Scott was gonna make the roster, but after he didn't play, and Dan Quinn said if you were healthy and you didn't play, you were pretty much safe, it led me to believe that he was probably going to make the roster. So I said that there were going to be 10 offensive linemen. There were 9, and them keeping 9 allowed them to keep 3 quarterbacks. So, yeah.
My first take when I look at this roster is, boy, is this a cleansing of what Ron tried to build here. I'm looking at the 2023 class, and Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin are sitting in a room like Will Smith in that Fresh Prince meme. They're the only things left in the house. They're the only things left in the house. That draft class. So Forbes went in the first round. Quan Martin went in the second round. Stromberg, gone. Braden Daniels, who had a good summer, gone. KJ Henry, who people are losing their minds about. I'm going to elaborate that on that in a second. Gone. Chris Rodriguez, gone. Andre Jones, gone. Now, that does not mean they're permanently gone. Some of these guys are going to clear waivers. Let's not kid ourselves. They're not knocking down doors for all of these guys across the league. Like, their names are not buzzing that seriously. But the KJ Henry and Ricky Stromberg one, those are the ones that got the fans talking today, because KJ Henry looked like our best pass rusher in the preseason. But you got to mind yourself as a fan, Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are not just watching preseason tape. They're watching practice tape. So they're watching every rep that these guys do in practice. They're watching that too when they make these cuts. So we think KJ Henry may be decent one day. Maybe that's not good enough for Adam Peters and company. They drafted a guy in the 7th round. Maybe they think the guy they took is better than KJ Henry. We shouldn't be all in a ruckus about a guy with 1 career sack and had 13 career sacks in 5 years of college play at Clemson, someone that Ron traded up to. We do that thing every summer where we get over infatuated with what we have internally. This roster looks exactly how we thought it was going to look, minus nobody had Colson Yankoff in the roster.
That's the ultimate upset, right? Colson Yankoff finding his way.
When I seen that, I had to double check and make sure I saw that correctly, because I didn't think we needed to keep 4 tight ends, but clearly there's a plan there. My second snapshot take is this is the initial roster. We're gonna claim some guys today, and we're not gonna find out about those claims till about 4:00 tomorrow. I believe we won't know about the claims till 24 hours after the cutdowns were due. But Washington holds 2nd in the waiver wire. We have to take advantage of it because we don't plan to ever pick 2nd in the waiver wire ever again. Before we go to each positional breakdown right now, is there a specific target position you see that we better target on the waiver wire?
Yeah, defensive end. I mean, receiver is always going to be a hot topic because it's the glamorous position. It's the easiest one to identify. Oh, I like this guy, or I like this guy in college, or, I've watched this guy play in the NFL. I think he's pretty good. But we need a defensive end. I mean, if you think Javonte John Baptiste is ready to help you in an NFL game consistently, you've got another thing coming. So obviously, they're going to play a lot of 3 defensive tackles. That's going to allow you to not have to have, your defensive ends be on the field as much. And then you still have Dante Fowler Jr. and F.A. Obata, I think, will come back at some point. So, and Frankie Louvu is going to play, edge rusher in passing situations too. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Sort of like the receiver position, where I don't think it's that big of a deal because you're not going to see 4 receivers on the field at the same time. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, sometimes even 13. You're going to see a lot of 21 personnel or 20 personnel. They're going to live in 11 personnel. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But if one injury happens at defensive end, you're screwed. So to me, defensive end is at the top of the list. I'm more concerned with that position and the lack of depth there than any other position on the team.
For sure. That's definitely something we need to look at. I'm still looking at a fluid situation at the wide receiver position. I know they want to see what we have here. I'm looking at it. We know the core 4, De'Ami Brown, Luke McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin, and Olamide Zaccheaus, but Byron Pringle and Jamison Crowder, it feels a little redundant with the undersized slot receivers here. I feel like we got to get a bigger body in this room, and obviously Bryson Tremaine and Martavis Bryant did not offer exactly what we're looking for from that profile. I'm looking at a Donovan Peoples-Jones, your boy Terrace Marshall from Carolina that just got released, maybe a Noah Brown. There are a lot of names out there. I know the names I have no interest in. I believe already one got picked up, Tim Patrick. That terrifies me, coming off of a Achilles tear and an ACL tear, and Kadarius Toney. I want nothing to do. I want us to stay very far away. I don't want us to try to draw up a future of him being a gadget guy in this offense here, but I see wide receiver and cornerback. Are we going to take our chance with a former first-round pick like Caleb Farley? Had an injury, lost both of his parents earlier in his career. That boy's been through a lot, but he is immensely talented. I'm looking at wide receiver and cornerback when it comes to the positions we may be looking at on the waiver wire. Appreciate you, Skins Fan All Day, for the $5 donation. He said, what's up? I wish they would have kept Martavis Bryant. I would have given him a chance. Sure, he was a great story, and he did catch a touchdown on Sunday, but I'm not sure he necessarily, I predicted him to make the roster because I thought maybe he made enough impact in that room, but you can't blame them for releasing a guy who hasn't played football in 6 years. He hasn't been good at football since 2014. Like, what were your thoughts on Martavis?
Yeah, I didn't expect him to make the team. And I talked about this yesterday. I said, fans are prisoners of the moment. And you watch this guy dominate the fourth quarter of that really the second half of that preseason game. He took over, but It's one half of football in a meaningless game in the third and final preseason game. And you have to remember, he just got here. He does not have full grasp of this offense. And then you got to think about the value of a Martavis Bryant versus other guys, other positions that you're going to keep. He doesn't play special teams. So what other value, what other things does he offer to you from a value standpoint to keep him on the roster versus a safety like Defoe or Tyler Owens, who's going to be on the field playing 20 to 30 snaps a game, whereas Martavis Bryant might only play 8 to 10 snaps, if that, a game. I mean, what are you really truly getting out of Martavis Bryant? I didn't see the value, and Dan Quinn after the game pretty much told us he wasn't making the team. So I knew he wasn't going to make the roster.
Yeah, it felt like more of a tryout, experimental. Let's see what he got left in the tank. And if he surprises us, sure, because the room is very bare right now. But appreciate you, David, for the $10 donation. He said my two favorite Commanders content creators at the same time. Let's go. Salute to you. But let's go left to right on this graphic. Let's start at the quarterback position. They shocked us a little bit. The NFL rule, we just learned out yesterday that it didn't go through. The rule that you could keep a quarterback on the roster, an emergency third quarterback that doesn't count against the roster. So was that why they decided to keep Jeff Driscoll in at QB3?
Probably so. I think it's largely tied to that rule not passing through and them realizing that we don't want to risk Jeff Driscoll being signed because he doesn't have to pass through waivers, right?
Nope.
He's a guy that's a vested veteran in this league. He would be immediately a free agent. And I'm looking at a team like Philadelphia who has no backup quarterback. A guy like Jeff Driscoll immediately is their second best quarterback if you sign him there. So I think you could probably go around the league to 3 or 4 different teams that could definitely use a Jeff Driscoll. And I think they saw that and they realized we just don't want to find ourselves in a position where Marcus Mariota played one possession and he got hurt, right? Yeah. He's been a guy that's gotten hurt in his career. Do you really want to chance Mariota hurting himself in practice or during the course of the week? And now you're one hit away from maybe a Sam Hartman potentially being in the game. That's not where you want to be. And so I thought that Jeff Driscoll made a ton of sense. I just didn't think they would do that, but it makes a ton of sense.
It definitely makes a ton of sense now that I think about it. Well, with the rule, of course. And I wanted to chime in on the fact that fans hate Marcus Mariota. Wow. He does not I don't entertain any conversations with him of confidence. He's the clear backup on the team. They've told you all summer what the pecking order was. I will go as far as to say there was never even a competition for backup. Hartman and Driscoll were auditioning to see who could be QB3 here. Marcus Mariota is your designated backup, and Jaden was always going to be the starter. Point blank, period. They don't care that they haven't seen much. They know who Marcus Mariota is, and he fits the exact archetype for this offense, for Jaden Daniels' profile. He was supposed to be what we expect Jaden to become when he was coming out of school. So he's the perfect backup for Jaden Daniels. Driscoll can play ball. So if it comes down to it, I'm going to knock on wood after I say it, but we've seen plenty of season come through Washington where we had to see 3 quarterbacks play during the year. Appreciate you again, my boy. Do you want to get in on the bet for a shot for every loss of Grandma? Nah. I don't want y'all go ahead and have that one, man. Grandma, y'all go
I took that bet already, Dave. And you gonna hold up your end of the bargain. You coming to the DR. Remember that. You got your end of the bet. So I'm gonna hold up mine.
I'm gonna let you hash that one out with Lou. I'm gonna go ahead and pass on the Grand Marnier, and we're gonna pass over to the running back position. I think a lot of us expected 3. I believe you took 4, right? You had us keeping 4, right?
No, I had that exact group.
Oh, you had the exact running back room. Okay, I had Wiley instead of McNichol, so you hit it on the head there. I thought maybe these preseason games just don't matter like we think it's going to, because it's a lot more contextual and nuanced than that when you count in practice reps and stuff. Why did we keep Jeremy McNichols over Wiley and Chris Rodriguez? I know why we took him over Chris Rodriguez, but is he the Peyton Barber of 2024?
So I had already kind of peeped game on this because I'm big on how guys say things, what they say, And I'm also big on when guys play in the preseason. I put a lot of stock, maybe too much so, into that. And all preseason, I don't know if you paid attention, but every single game after Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler left, the first guy off the bench was Jeremy McNichols. It never changed. Okay. Even when Wiley was eaten, Jeremy McNichols was always the first guy off the bench. Then Dan Quinn explained to us about a week ago the pecking order of importance of how they view players who aren't starters. And at the top of the list, or as they like to say, or as like he likes to say, at the top of the pile was special teams. And Jeremy McNichols is a far superior special teams player to that of Michael Wiley. Now, Wiley's the better all-around running back, but they value a backup player. The third running back better be a mean special teams player. Jeremy McNichols is that. And so Quinn had already told us a week ago, we value the guy that plays special teams over the backup player that's better at actual football. We want the guy that's going to help us on special teams, and McNichols is the guy that does that.
Okay, so and we already knew what the vibes were with B-Rob and Austin Eckler. Those guys, you might as well call them 1A and 1B. There is no 1-2 pecking order necessarily in that room. Moving over to the specialists, we can keep it short and sweet. Tyler Ott is a name I hope we never have to say again. I hope we never have to have a conversation or discourse surrounding a long snapper ever again. Tress Way, we know the vibes at punter. Is Cade York gonna last? You know, we're on fourth kicker of the offseason. We're playing kicker musical chairs. Is Cade York the guy for the year, Lou?
I hope so. I mean, and he's young too, right? This guy was a 4th round pick in 2022. So literally, we could have a kicker here for the next 15 years if this dude pans out. I'm hoping that our kicking woes are over and we found ourselves. He's got a big leg. I remember him from LSU. I watched him in Cleveland. His very first game go 4-4, including a 58-yard game winner against Carolina that landed him player of the week, special teams wise, his very first game of his career. So I know the guy has it in there. It's about consistency. And, you know, can we find a way to overcome, because he's going to miss kicks. He's not going to be perfect. Can we overcome and not allow one missed kick to turn into 2 and then have that be 4 out of 5 weeks where you've missed a kick or 2? Can we, you know, you're going to miss a kick. Can you come back and continue to be consistent throughout? That's the hope. I think we got ourselves a good kicker, though.
I think so too. He's got a lot of leg, was drafted in the mid rounds. He's a big leg kicker. He's one of those guys that may bail us out of a bad situation where there's bad weather, where he can still kick it through the wind, kick it through the rain a little bit. We got to hope the accuracy is there. Like a lot of people said, he was put into some bad situations early in Cleveland where he had to kick some extremely long field goals, and it messed up his field goal percentage early, and he may not have necessarily been able to even it out long term. But I hope we're done at kicker. I hope we don't have to claim one. I hope we don't have to talk about kicker for another 4 or 5 years. Can we get lucky?
Yep.
Dallas literally found Aubrey off the streets, and this guy's booting 66 yarders in the preseason. Can we just have a kicker?
We're due. We're due, Rio. We're up. We're up next. We got next.
We do. And the vibes are good. That's why I've tried to remain, no matter what we saw out of the preseason, we're playing with house money this year. Yeah. We're the only team in the NFC East with no expectation. The Giants are trying to save a coaching staff, and the Eagles and Cowboys are playing Super Bowl or bust limbo. Like we are literally, everything we do this year is house money at this point. And I see people panicking. We're not desperate yet at the cornerback position. We're not desperate yet at the tackle. We need to see what we have, and all holes can't be plugged in year one. You've seen the offseason. You've seen the preseason finish out, and we're now looking at the final 53-man roster. What's your mindset now compared to before we got to the summer portion of the offseason?
I'm most excited about the direction, right? They have set the foundation, but they haven't just set the foundation by talking about it. Their actions have backed that up. You know, the Jahan Dotson trade may not sit well with everybody, but there's a level of toughness that you must have, a level of physicality that you must play with. And you got to be not only physically tough, you got to be mentally tough to be a commander. And I haven't said anything remotely close to that in over a decade where you had to be a certain type of player to be here, because we haven't had an identity in over a decade, probably since the Shanahans were here, right? Where they were looking for a specific type of player. The thing that we've lacked is any type of direction or identity where you can say we hang our hat on this, right? So I think they're coming in here and they've told us from day one, we're going to play fast, we're going to play physical, we're going to arrive violently, and if those things don't fit the way you want to play football, then you won't play here. And they've said it already. This ain't for everybody. All right. Here won't be for everybody.
Yeah.
And I just love that mindset that they're setting the table with right now of, hey, this is how we play football, right? Either you get with the program or you get the hell out. And so I can appreciate them not resting on, well, we don't have enough talent here, so let's just keep KJ Henry. No, KJ Henry is a Jag. Get his ass out of here, right? And I told everybody this. If it came down to a guy they drafted versus a guy that was already here that they inherited, and the table essentially is even, right? All things are even with those two players. They're going to take the guy that they brought in here.
Facts.
And I'm not telling you everything was even, because I thought KJ Henry, if you're just looking at who was better right now, yes, KJ Henry should be better, right? He was here last year. He's a second-year player. He should be better than Javonte Jean-Baptiste. But in their minds, the gap wasn't big enough. It wasn't big enough. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all.
I don't blame him either. And not to beat a dead horse, but like the way we live is not for everybody. Just hearing that, like, I love it.
That's right.
Anywhere, anyone, anybody, anywhere, anytime. Anyone can get it.
That's right.
This is dog mentality. Right. We're not about to be ultra focused on purely character. Like, character matters as well, and high character football guys matter, but we got to have some dog mentality. Witt is talking about throwing your bodies around and hurting people. That is football. We need more of that. And like you said, there hasn't been an identity here. When someone looks at us on the schedule, there hasn't been an identity. All they can expect was that a circus came with us when we showed up on the schedule. Like, we haven't had the ability, like a lot of teams, to lose in peace. We haven't been able to be ass in peace, bruh. We are losing and still making headlines. We are losing and still on the ticker on all your little sports talk shows once Monday comes around each week. Establishing an identity and developing our young quarterback. Those are the mission statements in the syllabus of the 2024 Washington Commanders, y'all. Wins, any amount of wins that we get that's past 5 or 6, that is house money and the cherry on top of starting this whole thing over, because they don't want to use the word rebuild, but we know what the fuck the vibes are. We see the roster.
That's right.
We see look at this bare bones ass roster we're looking at right now. We're looking at a wide receiver room that minus Terry may not combine for 1,000 yard season right now, but there's no panic, though, because they're in a position where we can wait and see what the team has in year one. Look at what Caleb has in Chicago. He's not even allowed to be treated like a rookie this year. They expect him to go take that team to the playoffs right now. Jaden don't got that situation here. But if he gets us there, it looked better, right?
Right. That's right.
Hell yeah. But that's how I'm feeling, and I've not came off course despite what I saw in the preseason. But moving to the offensive line, some people still think it's a weakness. It still could be. There are not many sexy names on this list at all. How did this O-line? I picked 10, so I had these exact 9 plus I had Braden Daniels making the roster. How did your projection look versus how they played it out?
So I had 10. And I had Stromberg. Initially, I didn't have Stromberg making the team at all. At Mason Brooks, but he got cut a while ago. So then I replaced him with Stromberg, and then I had Julian Good-Jones making the roster. Okay. So you take those two out, Stromberg and Julian Good-Jones, you add in Trent Scott, and that's the 9 guys. And at the end of the day, this offensive line is going to be under a microscope because they were one of the big weaknesses heading into camp, right? And a lot of people felt like they didn't divulge enough resources into this offensive line. I beg to differ. Look, there wasn't a lot out there at tackle. Like people want to spend money for the sake of spending money. Like, hey, we got all this money, we might as well spend it. But
Bakhtiari.
right. Like,
like
what are we doing here? Right? Like they went and they upgraded guard, they upgraded center, right? You got Cosme. I would have loved it if they would have brought in some competition for Wiley, but that's fine. It is what it is. You can't fix everything in one off season. It's more about the play calling and how they utilize Jaden Daniels as a runner and the threat of him running. He doesn't have to run 8 times a game, but the threat of him running is going to freeze defensive ends. You run the football, you take pressure off this offensive line, you get the ball. Jaden Daniels got the ball out of his hands quicker than any quarterback in the preseason, right? So if that continues, and I'm not saying that it will, but if that continues, you're taking a ton of pressure off this offensive line. I'm not as concerned as everyone else, but I will be paying attention to the offensive line because there are going to be times where he's going to be standing back there for 3-4 seconds. He needs to be protected. If we're going to go play action fake, if we're going to try to drive the ball down the field, guys are going to be in one-on-one situations and they're going to have to hold up. And how does that happen when you start playing some of the better? We play Myles Garrett. We play TJ Watt. You know what I mean? Like we play a steady diet of elite rushers this year. So yes, I get it. I understand the angst with this offensive line, but at the same time, I think we can combat a lot of that by calling plays that allow pressure to be taken off of the offensive line. I just think about 2012. That offensive line wasn't very good, but they took pressure off of that line by using Robert as a runner and running the football and keeping defenses honest with the RPO game and things of that nature.
Absolutely. I think there are ways that you can rectify having an average line. I think you want to have a middle of the pack line in this league because you're not spending top dollar for them, but they're doing enough to let your quarterback and your system get their shit off. You need a line that is good enough. There's this fallacy that you have to have a dominant line full of all pros to be good in this league. No, you do not, because when you have a special play caller and you have a special guy behind the center, you don't need that. And if the offense is getting the ball out the hands, like you said, if Jaden is making quick decisions, and if he could also rectify some of that with his feet and mobility, then I think we're going to be good on the offensive line. Appreciate you, John Parton, my boy Spoonie P, for the $10 donation. He said, Ayuk still in play? My brother, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep fighting that good fight. I think that ship may have sailed for this year. I think what ends up happening is Ayuk stays in San Fran, not paid, and ends up an unrestricted free agent next offseason with T. Higgins. I think that's a conversation we may have to shelf because Peters and company, like we and Lou have been saying all stream, I don't think they're not going all in for the 1-year playoff trip. They're building a foundation that could punch an annual ticket to the dance. They're not looking just to sneak in immediately. I know Josh Harris said that 4-win shit, we can't have that, but I don't think we're going to see that again, but we don't need to be talking about playoffs in year 1. I would love to have Ayuk on this team. You see the bare cupboard of a wide receiver room we have. I just don't think that it's the right timing. I don't think this team's ready to press that button and go all in yet. What about you?
Facts. I couldn't agree with you more. I really don't even need to add much to that. The fact of the matter is, this is year 1 of a recalibration. And at the end of the day, they're building up all of the resources. They're not looking to give them away, right? They gave away a 7th round pick for Cade York. And what did he do the next day? Or hell, 30 minutes later, excuse me. Got 2 7th round picks back and a 3rd round pick. They're not looking to give away draft capital. They're looking to add as much of it as they can. So to trade for Brandon Ayuk, then have to turn around and pay him, I don't think that's what's on the menu for the Commanders right now.
Appreciate you, Viscount, for joining the channel. 28 months. That is a day 1 right there. Appreciate you, my boy, for always tuning in. Appreciate you, Duncan. I know you're an Eagles fan. I know you always got to come stir the pot. I cannot wait to see y'all shit the bed and disappoint your fan base this year. But transitioning from the Ayuk conversation to finishing off the O-line, like we're going into week 1. We know what we've got. Are you fine with rookie tackle Brandon Coleman seeing his first NFL action versus the Todd Bowles Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense?
Yeah, I'm not as squeamish against Tampa. I'm more squeamish against the Giants and Cincinnati the following week after that, where he's going to see real individual one-on-one matchups where guys can beat him. And we just didn't get to see it in the preseason. Like, our defensive ends aren't world beaters. So for him to go in there and dominate them, good. I'm glad. It beats the alternative. But at the same time, I wanted to see him against other teams' edge rushers and how he would fare in those situations. And we just never got to see it. Dan Quinn already told us they would love to see him in the preseason against another team, but they don't have to. They want to, but they don't need to for him to start week 1. Translation, if he's ready to practice this week, they're going to put him out there week 1 as the starting left tackle. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm anxious to see it. Look, we know what Cornelius Lucas is. So let's just find out what Brandon Coleman could be. And I'm on board for that. I'm all in. I want to see what this kid can do. If they feel good about him, I want to see him.
I've been told Tim Patrick's already been picked up from Detroit, by the way. I don't know how true that is, but I was good on that. I know Lou liked Tim Patrick, but I'm also with Lou. I'm playing Brandon Coleman off rip. Well, let's see what we got, because if we could come out of Adam Peters' first draft with all the picks making the roster, Jordan McGee's out on an IR designation, but that's our third linebacker when healthy. If we come out of our first Adam Peters draft with a bookend at left tackle, a quarterback, a potential starting wide receiver, Luke McCaffrey, an absolute dog and future captain in Mikey Sanders still, we made out like bandits in year 1 of Adam Peters, and the trajectory already looks like it's going in a complete opposite direction of Ron Rivera's tenure in DC, a tenure in which 33 draft picks out of 33 in 4 years in 2024, only 11 remain on the roster. So amazing. 22 clear misses in 4 years. I hate to keep dwelling on the Ron Rivera past, but just how bad was the drafting these last 4 years?
It was a mess. And I don't think it's more on display than the 2023 class. Like, I get it. There's something to be said about a new regime coming in and turning over the roster. We had that conversation when Adam Peters first got here. And I told everybody, I said, this roster is going to look a lot different. All those guys that you've gotten, accustomed to, and some of you have gotten attached to, I need you to understand what's about to go down. And I tried to warn the fan base that this was going to happen. But we even saw in the moment, like, we were pissed off about a lot of these picks last year. I mean, move Emmanuel Forbes aside, right? Move Quan Martin aside, because a lot of y'all are loving Quan Martin. You were the same ones killing him in the preseason that made the man shut down his social media last year. So, but remove those two from the equation. We were killing Ron and company in the moment in a year where you had to win for drafting a 3rd round center when you already signed one in free agency. And what sense did that make, knowing your 3rd round pick was going to be a backup off the rip, right? They drafted Braden Daniels, who everybody said, this kid's not ready to help you in year 1. The man was 295 pounds when he was drafted. What did you think he was going to do? And they had to put him on IR so they didn't have to cut him last year. So you already saw where that one was going. I wasn't a Chris Rodriguez fan. I liked KJ Henry. Then I watched him and I said, oh, I see why he was here in the 5th round. And then you got to the 7th round. I'm like, Andre Jones Jr. is basic. He's as basic as it gets. They liked his length and all this shit they tried to tell us. He was another jagged edge rusher. So I looked at that group and I said, well, how are we supposed to get excited about this group? You literally gave us 2 players that should be contributors in year 1. Everybody else is definitely relegated to the bench. And in the case of Braden Daniels, the man wasn't even on a roster and he wasn't going to make the team. It was a mess. That was last year's draft.
Yep. We are already without that whole draft almost. It's just Quan and Emmanuel Forbes left.
The same 2 guys. Same 2.
And that's why anybody turning on Adam Peters before he's even started to build this shit up from what Ron left him here, you're doing too much. Relax, take a chill pill, and let's let a game of football, a season of football play out before we start giving up on the new GM, because it is night and day compared to what we used to have here. I promise you. Appreciate you, Red Wings, for the $4.99 donation. Still got to see how the practice squad turns out. Both of our last 2 draft classes have been deleted to the shadow realm. 2021 class surprisingly intact-ish. You know, it's still here, still fighting for their life to make something out of themselves here on this roster. Appreciate you, my guy. But yeah, some of these guys will be back on the practice squad because, like I said earlier, nobody is beating down the doors of these guys to get here and to claim them immediately. That is not what we've had here. 819 in the chat right now. Smash that like button for your boy. Do you think we can beat the Ravens on October 13th at 1 p.m. in Baltimore? I hope so. It would be lovely. It would be a phenomenal surprise. That is the day before my birthday. So fingers crossed. I don't think we win in that one. I don't know if we built for that one yet. I know we got a surpriser and a shocker left in us every season. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that always scares me with Baltimore is Lamar Jackson. Can you contain Lamar Jackson? I don't know if we can, but we got Jaden Daniels running around, and so there's a little bit of that, you know, from a practice standpoint. You see it, you've been against it, maybe that helps you, but at the end of the day, like you said, that's a different animal up I-95. That's a different animal right now.
They are what we aspire to be. You know, you've heard our owner say it multiple times. I want this shit built like that team over in Baltimore. So that is a good measuring stick of what the future of this team could be like, and with a very mobile quarterback of how good our guy can be. And we could kind of get a little juxtaposition of what they are like as natural passers, seeing them on the same football field at the same time. Appreciate you, Sean, for the $20 donation. What it do? What's going on, man? It is a nice Tuesday night. We're out here breaking down the roster. Once I get off here, Lou's going to be doing the same on his channel. So make sure everybody rate that stream when you leave here. My boy Jalen said they about to claim him off waivers. Subscribe to my boy Jalen also, by the way, Bleeding BNG. My guy keeps it a buck as well over there. We got another donation. My boy Swaggy P. Ron will pay for his war crimes of drafting and attempting to assemble our team for the past 4 years. He sure will. You know, it's got to the point where I get so triggered, and like when I see him, I'm watching NFL Network the other day, and on the halftime show, good old Ronald's in the middle of the set as a head anchor on the crew. I wanted to throw my TV off the balcony. Like, I didn't want to see any more of the game. Like, why is this guy here right now? Go get on the golf course, Ronald. Let football be the games pass you by, but I wish him best in retirement. Ron will definitely pay for those war crimes. But the position we've probably talked the most about this offseason, Washington ended up keeping 6 at the wide receiver position. We knew who the top 4 was going to be with Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, and rookie Luke McCaffrey. Byron Pringle and Jamison Crowder round out that room. Is that because of return flexibility, or do you think that they are going to be factors in the passing game? Or do you see that being a fluid position that we are probably going to add to in the next day?
It's a combination of both. So we'll see. And I said this when we were just talking to Justin Pugh. I'm going to be very fascinated with the guys that they put claims in on, because you're not going to always get all of them. Carolina is in front of us, but most of the guys we put claims in on, we should get them. Theoretically speaking, there's only one team in front of us, and if they don't want them, then that player is going to be awarded to us. I think Crowder being here is strictly off of his versatility. They know what he is as a punt returner, which is why they never put him back there the entire summer. They like, we know what he is as a punt returner. We don't need to see him. We need to see everybody else. But they also know he can help as a receiver. He's still got something in the tank there. So I think it's those two things with Crowder that make him sort of a security net of sorts, right? Almost like a blanket for them. But Pringle is strictly here off of special teams. He can help as a receiver, but they brought him here to be the kickoff return man and to also run down and down punts inside the 5. Like he's a core special teamer through and through. So can you upgrade that position? Absolutely. Will they? I don't know, because again, like what is really out there that's going to really upgrade this group? Like, I know it's not a great group and it doesn't really inspire a ton of hope, but what are you really going to get this time of the year that's going to change the game, that's going to move the needle, right? That's the thing you have to ask yourself. Like, you bring in a Noah Brown. Okay, great. It's Noah Brown, right? Like, I get it. You know, you want something so you can say we did something, but at the end of the day, we got 6 dudes here, and I've already told you the receiver position isn't going to be as heavily relied upon in terms of going all the way to your 5th receiver. If we stay relatively healthy, you're going to see the same 3 or 4 dudes out there. So we should be fine.
Yeah, and while I think we can and should add to the room, nobody's gonna come in and project to be a Pro Bowl player. Nobody's gonna come in and save us at this point. Great players don't get released on cut down day. Elite players, they don't come available. They do not grow on trees. I think regardless of how this wide receiver room plays out, they want to see what they have. They want to see what they have in a quarterback. They want to see what they have in an offensive coordinator. And they think they have guys that are good enough to get us by through the system. We have some speed. We don't have that much size, but we got some guys that can make some shit shake after they get the ball in their hands. And I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to target the hell out of Terry McLaurin. Terry is going to probably see his best target share than he's ever got. He's all we got in the room for the most part, as far as a proven commodity in this league. I want to see what what Terry looks like when he gets enough targets to put up 1,400 yards, because he's fully capable of doing it. He gets 1,000 every year, no matter how many quarterback steps on the field, no matter how fucking awful EB's offense was. He still scratched and clawed and fought his life until he got 1,000 yards out of it. So if Jaden and him have that instant chemistry, I'm excited to see just how much we can get out of our number one receiver. I think we will really see just how truly a number one Terry is this year, because what does he really have to compete with in the wide receiver room?
And just to piggyback off of that, I sleep good at night knowing that when Cliff had a number one receiver in DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona, he ate well. That man had a napkin, knife, and fork every week and ate well. So I feel really good knowing that he's going to feed his best players. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
D-Hop was putting up 90 yards a game in that Cliff Kingsbury offense, but all I can hear about is, oh, they're gonna just line him up to one side all the time like they did D-Hop. Well, you know what? That worked for D-Hop in Arizona. I will take that. I will take some of that over here at this point. Appreciate you for the $5 donation shot by Sean. He said, side note, either of y'all ever thought about doing a live in-person version of y'all show, Joe Button Pod Top 5? I love the JBP, by the way. I listen to that shit religiously, even after they switched up their cast member. I would love to do something like this. When one day I can do this full time, I want to have some type of setup where I can invite people over and we can sit around and do like home ESPN type shit. But right now, that's not in the cards for the boy, but I would love to do something like that. What about you, Lou?
Yeah, so I actually had that on the docket back in 2020, and then COVID hit and it threw all of that shit into disarray. So I had to go back, recalibrate, and I've been trying to kind of set some things up, but eventually we're going to get to a point where that is definitely a thing. I've got so many ideas you guys couldn't even imagine. So yeah, I've thought about that for sure.
Same. I have so many ideas. I've watched so many different people's content. Shout out to my guy Mark Holmes, who does Dallas Cowboys content. He has the setup in his backyard, ESPN style, where it would be like a 4-person, 4-mic thing to sit and do play-by-plays for games. I have a lot of ideas in my cupboard as well. One day we will get to them. That's a great question, by the way. But let's move over to the tight end position, where probably the biggest surprise happened here. We knew Ertz, Sennett, and Bates were your top 3. I thought they would only keep 3. They decided to keep the undrafted guy, Colson Yankov. We're talking about a dude who was one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country in high school, and then moved over to wide receiver, then running back, and then tight end, and is now a professional tight end for the Washington Commanders. What do you think about the tight end room?
I think it's a really good room, and they clearly love the room. Dan Quinn said of the tight end room, along with the safety position, it's the two deepest positions on the team. So they felt really good about the tight ends. So did I. I like Colson Yankoff. I said of all of the undrafted guys, the two that I thought stuck out, Owens just felt like he was too raw, but he ended up playing a lot better than I thought. But the two guys that stuck out to me that had sticking power were Michael Wiley and Colson Yankoff. And so I'm not surprised that they liked him. I'm surprised that they kept him because he felt like a guy that you could get on the practice squad. But I contend, and I've said this, you're baking in guys that if you're putting in waiver claims, somebody's got to take somebody's roster spot, right?
Exactly.
So if you put in 3 waiver claims and you're awarded 2 of them, well, 2 guys have to then be removed from the roster and cut, and then you see if you can get them back on the practice squad. Colson Yankoff feels like one of those baked in guys that if they get a waiver claim and they're able to be awarded that guy, he might be the first guy they go to and say, hey, we really like you a lot. We're going to need to go ahead and cut you though. And if you pass through waivers, we're going to bring you back, put you on the practice squad. So it was a big surprise though. It was crazy because I went through the list. I was live at the time when the list first came out. And I went through the whole entire list, and I'm going through the offense, and I went, wait a minute. I don't remember saying Colson Yankoff's name. So I went back to the list. I looked down the list again, and I was like, oh my God, Colson Yankoff made the roster. This is crazy. Mm-hmm. So it was the biggest upset of the day without a doubt. Without a doubt.
What I say about Bryson Tremaine, I know earlier it looked like he was going to make the team earlier in camp, but when I did my roster projection yesterday, I did not have Bryson Tremaine on that final roster. But the tight end room looks like one of the strengths of the team, which is something we haven't been able to say for a while. I think we're going to get more production than people think out of Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is a focal part of the offense. He's going to get fed. He's going to be one of Jaden Daniels' security blankets here. Ben Sinnott and him, we're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. We're going to even see some 3 tight end sets at this point. Is Colson Yankoff more of the Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback of this offense, or is he actually a tight end as well?
I think he's a bit of everything. He's more of a Chris Cooley type, right? Like sort of that H-back. Yeah, where you're going to move him around so you get some Juszczyk action. You're going to get some tight end action. They're going to line him up in line as a Y. They're going to flex him out. He's going to be in a backfield. I think you're going to see him all over the place. But when it's all said and done, I think he'll be used in a more of a traditional role. But I wouldn't be shocked if you see him lined up in the backfield at times. They got some misdirection. He leaks into the flat and they get it to him immediately on some fullback type shit. So, yeah, I think you're going to see him all over the football field when he's in the game for sure.
I agree. And Brandon Thomas, yes, you are the only one who would have kept Trace No Arm McSorley over Dress Driscoll. Maybe his family, maybe the family of Trace McSorley, absolutely not. But moving on to the defensive side of the ball, we can start at the DBs. We kept a lot of we kept 6 safeties. That one, we can start with the DB rooms. What was your immediate observation when this came up?
So I had 7 safeties, right? Ooh. And the thing was, we had heard that Dominique Hampton had been cross training as a linebacker. So I was like, when the list comes out, they may have him listed as a linebacker, but it's not going to matter. He still made the roster. So whether it's 7 or 6 safeties or 5, it's semantics at this point. I wasn't shocked by how many safeties they kept. I knew they were going to keep a bunch of them. I knew it was only 5 corners. We knew who the 5 corners were going to be. So that was probably the one position I'm like, I have 0 doubts that this is how it's going to look. That and
so you had Igbenogany as well?
Oh yeah, that was an easy one. I thought
it was Castro Fields. I didn't go hold you.
Oh man, I don't know what you was watching, Rio. That was crazy.
It was probably Lake Lewis, man. He got to me.
Oh man, Castro Fields stood no shot because this is the way I looked at it, right? So you got your 3 boundary corners in Forbes, Benjamin St. Juste, and Michael Davis, right? So you got your 3 boundary corners, and then right now your one true nickel is Mike Samerstill. Well, the only other guy that plays nickel and gives you any quality play there is Noah Igbenogany, right? We did the Benjamin St. Juice nickel experiment last year. We don't ever want to do that shit again. Okay.
Ever.
So the fact that Noah Igbenogany came from Dallas last year, so Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn know him intimately. He's a core special teams guy, and he can play competent nickel corner. I said, he's our nickel insurance. I've been saying this the entire time. He ain't State Farm. He's not Progressive. He ain't Geico. He's the general, okay? Look, it's still insurance, right? It ain't the best insurance, but it's insurance.
Yep.
And so I always felt like Noah Igbenogany was a lock to make this roster. So those 5 guys were always on the roster. Same with the running back position. Those 3 guys were always on the roster. My thing was the safeties. I struggled with that for a very long time, and then I finally gave in about a week and a half ago. I had this hard line stance. You're only keeping 5 because that's usually the traditional number. 5 corners, 5 safeties, a total of 10 defensive backs. I had to get out of my mind that it's 10 defensive backs and it's 5 safeties. I'm like, bro, that's the strength of the team. We have 7 legitimate safeties, now 6 if you move Dominique Hampton to linebacker. You got all these safeties. That's where the talent is. Don't water your roster down because you have too many of these. Keep those guys, right?
Okay.
And that's what they ultimately did. And Dan Quinn told us, and this is when I knew, this is when I had to flip the way that I was thinking. He said, with the special teams and the dynamic kickoff, he said that the body type of a safety out in space blocking is going to be more impactful than the big, bulky linebacker of yesteryear that you would keep to be, and then the extra offensive lineman that you would keep to be in special teams, kickoff, return units, and things of that nature. So I knew they were leaning towards keeping more safeties because of that. And remember, with their defensive scheme, their safeties also act as pseudo linebackers. They did it in Dallas. Yep. They're going to do it here. So it made a lot of sense to keep all of those guys. So I wasn't surprised there.
And while I think our cornerback room is one of the weaker rooms we have on this roster, I trust the guys coaching them. Dan Quinn and Joe Witt have not shown you any failure at developing a secondary on their entire resume as NFL coaches. So, like you said, insurance is insurance. We may not have full coverage, but we got liability insurance, you know?
That's right.
I think the guy we got on the inside, Mikey Sanders still, I think he's going to be so good and make so many plays and be one of the leaders on defense. And I think we're going to get enough push up front that we don't need to have world beaters on the outside. But
that's right.
Liability coverage. You got to get some type of insurance to take the car off the lot. It don't got to be full coverage, but you're leaving with something, right?
That's right. That's right. You got it. You got it. You got to have something, bro.
That is Washington's cornerback room. Make or break season for Emmanuel Forbes. These are guys that were also high on you in Dallas. They had you high on their draft board. They expected you to fall in the range of where they picked. They were flabbergasted when he came off the board to Washington. Put up or shut up time for Emmanuel Forbes. We saw him call out the fan reaction when he had his little sideline interview.
That was bad.
He had his diamonds dancing on his neck. Man, I see people, man, they hold me to a different standard. They hold you to the standard of first-round cornerback.
Right. That's
so we're not going to change that, sir. Your game is the thing that needs changing. That's not a good look for you because people are going to meme the shit out of him if it looks like more of the same in the 2024 season. But the cornerback room, it is what it is. I thought Castro Field, but honestly, whoever that last guy in the room was, you're not getting much from that anyway. Noah Igbenogany at least is like a 4-3 guy. He can run, and he has return special teams flexibility as well. The safety room is interesting. You knew Reeves wasn't going nowhere because Reeves is the best special teams player on the team, not named Tress Way.
That's right.
Derek Forrest was out here running with the threes all summer. You didn't know what was going to happen with Derek Forrest when it came to these final roster cuts. I know I was shocked on Sunday night when I see Percy Butler didn't have to play on Sunday. Has Percy Butler looked good enough to be in street clothes during the final preseason game to you?
I don't know why you were shocked, Rio. I really don't know why you were shocked. This man has been the first
solidified.
This man has been the first safety off the bench the entire summer.
Oh, yeah, true.
The whole summer, the first dude after they start swapping out, or if they go to a 3-safety look.
He plays specials too. Yeah.
And he plays a mean special team.
Because he's crackhead fast. I say it all the time.
Yo, look, man. You can say what you want about Percy Butler, but he can run, and it doesn't always take proper angles, and he doesn't always tackle guys and get guys on the ground. But he can run, and they love speed. That's all they talk about: speed and physicality. He will throw his body around, and he runs really, really fast in a straight line. So it's his kind of traits. They value and covet the things that he brings to the table. I don't love his tackling ability. He was awful last year. If he can clean that up, Percy's all right with me. But he rubbed me the wrong way last year because a lot of big runs were given up because he didn't put a cap on a lot of those runs, taking poor angles and missing guys. So I want to see him be better in that regard.
Percy Butler still to this day is uncontrolled chaos. He's
Absolutely.
like if the Flash just learned how fast he was and doesn't know how to control his speed. He gets to the ball in a lightning speed. He gets there so fast he doesn't know what the fuck to do when he gets to the ball. Like he's taking bad angles, he's missing tackles. If we could put those two things together and control the chaos, he could be an actual fine safety for us at some point.
I literally used that same analogy with him last year. Like he's literally like a superhero who just learned he has superpowers. I literally used that same analogy with him. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's exactly how I feel about Percy Butler.
He flies around the field. He just doesn't know what the hell is going on the field.
Absolutely. Man. Absolutely.
Our starting safeties, Jeremy Chin, looking to get a long-term deal. You know, he's on a 1-year prove it. Quan Martin in year 2. One of the only picks that showed real promise in Ron's last draft class here. How confident are you in the back end of that defense?
I feel relatively confident. I'm still I love Jeremy Chin. I don't have any doubts about him. I'm still looking at Quan and I'm like, are you going to be on time? Are you going to be there when you're supposed to be there? You know, that sort of thing. Because they've been using him strictly and exclusively as a free safety. Like he's not shifting. He's not coming down in the box. They got other guys to do that. They want his speed and his ability to go take the ball away on the back end. And I want to see that. I want to see if he can get there because there were times in these joint practices where guys were getting over the top and I'd always see Quan Martin just a tad late to the party, right? So I just want to see if he can be where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And, you know, for those overthrows or those, because you say what you want about Defoe back in 2022 when he was healthy. If you made a mistake, Defoe was making you pay for it. He led the team in interceptions in 2022.
Playmaker.
He was a playmaker. He was around the football. And so I just want to see if Quan Martin, he was that at Illinois. You know, he was that. That's what got him drafted in the 2nd round. We were all excited about that pick. And so I want to see him get back to being a playmaker. And I think he can be. I just need to see it. That's all.
Oh, yeah. They called that boy a black Troy Apke. They said, Lou, you love Percy. We just hate Percival.
Hey, that's right. They know when I call him Percival, he didn't effed up again. So I love me some Percy, man. It's Percival. That's a problem. You don't want to hear me calling him Percival. Yeah, but we got issues.
We need more Master Pete and we need Percival in 2024 on that back end. But to round out the defensive part of the roster, we know what it is in the starting lineup. Frankie Louvu, someone that we're probably more excited about than anybody not named Jaden Daniels.
That's right.
Bobby Wagner, the quarterback of the defense, who in his big age still led the league in tackles last year. 180 tackles for him, 125 for Louvu. Louvu's going to be pass rushing. He's going to be used all over this defense. We know what we're getting out of those two. We were hoping to see a lot of Jordan McGee this year, and hopefully we still do. He's supposed to miss, the first 4 weeks because he was placed on IR to start the season?
That's right. That's right. Short-term IR. So if everything goes well with him, he can be back for week 5.
Okay, so we still should, fingers crossed, we still should see a bunch of Jordan McGee. It seems like he's going to be the 3rd linebacker in the pecking order this year. So other than our top guys, we're going to see the most out of him than anybody else, right?
Yeah. So they're grooming him to be the middle linebacker of the future. So if all things go well, and there's some people out there saying, why can't Bobby Wagner be London Fletcher and play the next 3-4 years here in Washington? I'm like, that could happen theoretically, but that's not what they brought him here to do. They brought him here to be a mentor to Jordan McGee. They brought him here to help instill the culture, right? To come in here, show guys how to work, to show guys how to be a professional. and to really hone in on your craft, and then to go out and do it on the field and show them what this work ethic and watching all this film, what it translates to on the field. So Bobby Wagner is going to hold up his end of the bargain. And then next year, they'll probably say, all right, Jordan McGee, you're up, right? So they're hoping that he comes back from this injury, stays healthy, is able to soak up all the experience that he can get, and then also, learn from Bobby Wagner, see how the position is supposed to be played at a high level, and then be ready to step in next year when Wagner, more likely than not, is not resigned. But we'll see. Wagner could have an excellent year, and they'd be like, nah, we need you for one more year. I'll come back for 2 more years. So we'll see.
Why are we listing Dante Fowler Jr. as a linebacker? He's kind of a pass rush edge specialist for this team. Why do you think that they're using him, have him listed as a backer?
Because he never puts his hand in the dirt. When he rushes from a 2-point stance. So his versatility allows you to call him a linebacker. But he's, for all intents and purposes, an edge rusher. He's really going to be coming after the quarterback when he's in the game. But he also drops into coverage and he does some of those things. And so, again, it's semantics. Same thing with, Dominique Hampton. The man was drafted as a safety. They moved him to linebacker. It's semantics. But he's really an edge rusher. But they did that with the unofficial depth chart. I saw that the first time and I was like, okay, y'all playing games. But at the end of the day, you call him whatever you want. We know what he's been brought here to do. So
yeah, we know exactly what he was brought here to do. Michael Walker as the last backer in the room. I guess it was down to him and Anthony Pittman. Anthony Pittman was looking lost as hell. I thought he was going to – I thought he maybe showed a little bit more. Were you surprised that it was Michael Walker? Is this what you anticipated?
Anticipated this. When we signed him in, I want to say it was March, I say, this ain't one of those token signings like the James Pierre signing, right? I was like, this ain't James Pierre we just signed. We signed a guy that's going to make this roster in Michael Walker. I loved him in Atlanta. He's had some rough go over the last couple of years, bouncing around from team to team. He was in Jacksonville. He's in Pittsburgh last year. He hasn't really found a home, but I think he's going to be really good. It was rough that first preseason game. He did not look good, man. He did not look good. But I thought the final 2 preseason games, he played his ass off. And I said, okay, that's the Michael Walker I've come to know and love. And I think he showed more than enough to be on this roster. So I had him making this team. That wasn't a surprise to me at all.
And that is the 2024 Washington Commanders roster. We just went through it all. We started from the top to the bottom of the list. We know what you think should be added to the room, if anything. What do you expect to hear when tomorrow comes around, when waiver claims go in at around 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon? What do you expect Washington did, and what do you, if any at all?
I think we have this perception because we're second that we're just going to be super aggressive and we're going to be out here reaching and grabbing for everything. Like we running into a toy store and we got 30 seconds to pick up as many toys as we can. Like, like we on some supermarket sweep type shit. I don't think that's what it's going to be at all, right?
No doorbusters.
Nah, that's not what this is. Because it's not a lot of stuff in here that you are willing to stand outside and wait in line for. So when they open that door, you going to grab it. Ain't no laptops for $100 inside this store that we about to go in. So when it's all said and done, I think they put in 2 or 3 waiver claims, right? And I think Carolina will want one of them. And so you'll walk away with either 1 or 2 guys, and then you'll make the necessary adjustments to your roster to, bring those guys in. But I don't think it's, you talk to most fans, oh, we about to claim 5 or 6 dudes, right? I don't think it's going to be that, right? Like, I think they like a lot of the players that they kept. They understand that this is the first year of a rebuild, and it's not going to be a lot of stuff out there that's really going to move the needle for your roster. And they know that. So I think it's going to be a corner, potentially a wide receiver, and a defensive end. And I wouldn't be shocked if there's no corner and it's just the edge rusher and a wide receiver.
They're definitely claiming a wideout. I definitely think they're claiming a wide receiver, and I think they may claim a corner, but I think that they believe in their, Coach ego is a thing. I think they believe in their ability to coach up that room, and they haven't shown us what it's actually going to look like at all this season. They've been playing a lot of vanilla stuff, nothing too aggressive or exotic yet. And like you said, all the prime real estate is on a roster right now. You said supermarket suite. It makes me think about my favorite Christmas movie, Jingle All the Way. Arnold Schwarzenegger forgot to get Turbo Man on time. And what did they have fully in stock? Booster. Nobody wanted Booster.
Nobody wants that.
We don't want Booster. There's a lot of Booster out there, not a lot of Turbo Man available for everybody. So it's not going to be like 7 or 8 claims, but I definitely think we put it at least 2 or 3 claims tomorrow. And the trade market still exists. There could be something they have their eyes on that they decide to trade for. You know, there could be something still out there. I'm not sure a splash move, which I know a lot of fans want. They want something provocative. They want something juicy going into the season. We are like 12 days away from, we're a couple weeks away from our first game of the season. I think the splashes are done and they're about to start preparing for Tampa Bay. But on the roster front, that's where I stand for right now. Washington had other news today. Before we get to the other news, though, I didn't mention much of Tyler Owens. Thank you, Big E, for pointing this out. Shout out to Tyler Owens. He was Mr. August. He was Mr. Preseason for the team this year. He went crazy. Freak of nature. He looked every bit like the relative athletic score we saw, the perfect one. Boy's built like a backer, runs like a corner, and I'm excited to see how they find a way to work him into the defense during actual football games. But let's get to the other news of the day. We're on our third name change. We're now on our third stadium name change. The naming rights to FedEx were gone. We were now Commanders Field. We woke up this morning to news that we are now Northwest Stadium. I know for me, that is hilarious because that's my ex-wife's company. So I can't get away from that woman at this point. They now have the stadium rights, Northwest Stadium, for a team located in the Northeast. What are your opinions about the naming rights?
It's a weird name, but it's better than no name, I guess. I mean, it's about revenue at this point. They could care less. It could have been Bullshit Bank Stadium, right? They could care less. Just we need the naming rights money at this point. You get so much money off of somebody putting their name on your stadium. So I think FedEx was like a little over $7 million a year. So you got to replace that revenue. I hate the name. Like, I mean, there's no way to make Northwest cool, right? I mean, literally, isn't that Kanye West's daughter's name or something?
Yeah, Northwest. That is Kanye's first child.
There's no way to make that cool, man. Like, you can't be like, yo, y'all don't want to come into Northwest, right? Y'all, you know, there's no way to spin that. I mean,
catch me at the Fed. Catch me at the Fed.
Right. Like, I mean, if it was Northeast, we could turn this into some DC shit.
Yeah, we could.
It's Northwest. There's no way to spin it. So I'm like, I get it. I understand what you had to do. You did what you had to do, but yuck. But it is what it is, man. I ain't tripping about it.
I know at the end of the day, bills got to be paid and there's money to be made. So know they were going to slap a name on FedEx Field. I know when I see 8-year naming right, that tells me that
we ain't going nowhere for a ride.
That new stadium not coming till I'm in my 40s. That joke's coming in like 2032, 2033. They got a lot to work out with the city of Washington, D.C., Congress, the Senate, etc. That told me more than what the name of the stadium is going to be. I don't care what the name of the stadium is. Ultimately, I want to see us win inside the stadium. I don't want to see pipes bursting in the stadium. I don't want our field to take the ligaments of any more football players, ultimately. But it is what it is about the name of the stadium at this point. Josh Harris spoke this weekend and he said a lot. Listening to Josh is very refreshing because he's honest as hell. I think sometimes he could get a little more honest than he needs to be. He keeps it a whole buck. He doesn't put on his poker face. He clearly doesn't like the name Commanders. At some point they're going to revisit that name. What did you take away from Josh Harris's conversation with the media on Sunday?
A lot of what you just said. I think he understands the process. The thing that jumped out to me that made me smile and laugh was he's really a fan too. right? Like
Very much so.
he got out of his corporate bag for about a good 45 seconds during the press conference. He's like, yo, we ain't gonna be as bad as we was last year. Like that 4-game shit ain't happening again. Like he had to remind himself. Then he kind of came back like, okay, let me calm down. But he was like, yo, we not playing. We not gonna be that bad. We was bad last year. We ain't gonna be that bad. He sounded like one of us, right?
Hell yeah.
And so he gets it because he grew up a fan of the team. So he understands what this team means to this area. And he understands also that winning is the best deodorant to fixing everything. Like
it is.
You got to win first, and then that'll take care of everything else. And so that's why when he first got here, he said, look, we're not worried about the name right now because we got other pressing issues. We need to fix the stadium. We need to build back a rapport with the fans. Like the last group shitted on y'all, right? There's such a disconnect between the organization and its fans, the organization and its former players, that we need to rebuild all of those relationships. We need to win, and then we can start worrying about get a new stadium, and then we can worry about a new name, right? So many things that are in front of the name, and he talked about that. But I think that him throwing some shade at Dan Snyder saying, hey, we felt like Sean Taylor and his family deserved a first class statue and monument and things like that. Like he understands, like there's things that need to be done in order to get the fans back in the building and get the fans back on your side. And he's taking all of the right steps, I think, in doing that. But everything pales in comparison to what winning can do at the end of the day. And
you just
know that.
You just know Josh and company be frying the shit out of Dan and them behind the scene. You know, they look at it like the way he talks to, like, God, look at this fucking stadium.
Yeah. Look, you know, he threw some shade with he's like, yeah, we got that practice turf from the 80s up, man. It's like tone of voice. He was, you know, they be killing his ass behind closed doors. Like, yo, I remember I'm pretty sure when he toured the facility for the first time, he's like, this is a fucking dump. What is this shit?
Yeah,
like, how are they even a competitive team? Yeah,
I know whatever auditor he brought with him on that first tour, I know they was writing all that shit down. Change this, change that, change that. They are trying their best to put a filter on everything that Dan Snyder left here in Washington. But it's very refreshing to hear him talk. Like when he was in his fan bag, he was talking about specific moments, specific players that he grew up with in the fandom. So he's not just some casual fan. Like he knows this team. He has done his research and he actually grew up rooting for this team. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited about the whole outfit we have here. I think fans need to relax. So to close it out, we were just on Giants former offensive lineman Justin Pugh's podcast before we came on here. He had us picking game by game the record for the team this year. And we both were sitting there like, I think we're saying win a little more than we need to be saying win for this season. What is a objective win total range for Washington in year one? Because I think it should sit somewhere between like 6 and 8, with 9 being the absolute possible best ceiling if things all go right in 2024.
You just hit it right on the head. Between 6 and 8 wins. My number has been 7 all season.
Perfect number.
And again, you know, anything over 7 wins, and we overachieved in my book. So I told anybody that would listen, I'm just going to enjoy this season. I've been through this before with other teams that I root for, the Atlanta Braves and the Memphis Grizzlies, when they were extremely young, no expectations, just go out and have fun. And both of those teams arrived probably a year or 2 earlier than anybody anticipated. And I'm not saying that I'm putting that expectation on Washington, but I just remember enjoying those seasons with no expectations, just going in and saying, hey, whatever happens, happens. The biggest thing that I'm looking for this season is that we come out of this thing saying, hey, we got our quarterback. Now we can just build up the rest of the roster. We know we got us a dude at quarterback. And if you come out of this season saying that, all right, let's go build the roster up and let's go turn this thing around. All right.
Hell yeah. That's exactly what I'm looking for. If improve on last year, it can't be no 3 or 4 win type shit. So above the win total for last year, did we establish an identity going into 2025 when the Commanders show up on your schedule? Do you know what type of football team is playing? Okay, they're going to be physical with us. Okay, they're going to do this. They're this kind of football team. So identity, Jayden Daniels showing us he's that guy, and just getting an idea of what young players are going to build the core nucleus of this football team going forward. I had a Sixers fan tell me the other day, y'all are headed for a world of nightmares with Josh Harris. And I disagreed because I said, if you can tell me that we become the Sixers and Jayden Daniels becomes a Embiid-like transcendent MVP caliber player, and we could punch our ticket to the dance and have a chance to go for the title every year, that is not a nightmare at all. That is a dream for me, because we ain't lived that at no point of my life of fandom.
That's right. And I've heard that from, because a lot of what you got to realize is a lot of Sixers fans are also Eagles fans. So it's hate there, right?
And people in Philly are just different.
It's a lot of hate there, though. Like they haven't won, so they have to blame somebody. So they blame. He's put them in a position to win. I don't really know what. My dad is a Sixers fan, so I followed the Sixers very closely. So I know he's given them all the resources that they've needed to win. They just haven't gotten it done. And so I beg to differ. If that's what we can look forward to, what he's done for that organization, sign me up for that shit. Sign me up for that twice. Why I gotta sign that?
Don't associate. Embiid is an MVP candidate every year and one of the better players in the NBA. If you don't want that for our quarterback, then y'all do not want the best thing for this franchise. That's going to wrap up tonight's stream. Thank you, my boy, for coming on and wrapping it up with me. I know he's tired of my face at that point. We've been at it for the last, since about 6:30, since we were on a pod before we came here. I know everybody in the chat is familiar with this guy already, but look, let them know where to find you, if not already, and let folks know what you got coming on the channel.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on the program, Rio. As always, you already know how to get at me if you need me. For those of you out there, you can find me on YouTube at Louis T Network. I'll be doing a stream right after this, starting at about 9:45 or so. Got to get me another cup of tea. But you can find me on Twitter or X at Louis T Network. You can find me on IG, Louis T Network _. You can Louis T Network podcast. I mean, I'm all over the place. Just type in Louis T or Louis T Network, and you'll find my content. And we're gonna be at this thing all year, just like Rio is gonna be at this thing all year, covering this team like a blanket. And so you know where to find us. You know what the content is all about. And if you don't, give it a spin and see what you think. And I really appreciate you for giving me an opportunity to be on this platform and kick it and chop it up with you, man.
Always. And I always thank you for welcoming me into this content creator community. We got something dope coming out on Justin Pugh's channel in the next week. I'll make sure to plug that when it comes out. That's all we got for right now. Until next time, hail to the Washington Commanders. Everybody in this chat, jump over to Louis T's channel and do the same thing over there. Y'all have a good night. Until next time, Commander Rio out.